Welcome to The Big Story. I'm Gretchen Ho.
And I'm Shawn Yao.
Tonight's big stories. Day 2 of the filing of certificates of candidacy drew both political veterans and newbies. We have a rundown of the candidates that turned up today in a little while.
President Bongbong Marcos signs the VAT on digital services law. What is covered by this law and what does it mean for subscribers and consumers? We'll be discussing these in depth with tax expert Mona Brea later on.
And higher charges for airlines using NAIA has also been implemented. Will the added fees lead to higher airfares? Well, the Department of Transportation says not necessarily. Unlike yesterday when certificates of candidacy came in trickles, Day 2 of COC filing saw more personalities turning up at the tent city of Manila Hotel.
Quite a number of them were actually familiar faces seeking re-election or aiming to make a comeback at the Senate. But it won't be Philippine elections as we know it without the non-traditional candidates showing up as well. Juan Gualvez has this report.
In a wheelchair, Imelda Marcos did not miss the chance to witness her oldest child take another shot at the national post. The 95-year-old former First Lady tagged along Senator Amy Marcos when she filed her certificate of candidacy on Tuesday. The re-electionist lawmaker is bannering the Nacionalista Party. She again explained why she opted off her brother, President Bongbong Marcos' senatorial ticket.
Baka magkaroon ng iba't ibang kulay at hindi masara yung pinto sa iba't ibang sektor, mas maigi na. Alam naman natin ang halalan, madugo, mainit, mabagsik ang usapin, mas mainam na wala akong kalaban.
The senator did not say if she is willing to accept an endorsement from Vice President Sara Duterte, who has openly criticized the Marcos administration. Impeaching the VPs on the agenda of the returning Magdalo party list. Staunch Duterte critic and former Senator Sonny Trillanes was even there to join his comrades in filing their certificate of nomination and acceptance.
Pero malaking factor kasi ang pag-demonize sa amin before the public. Sa nakaraang administrasyon, lumalabas na kami talaga yung salarin, kami yung demonyo, kami yung kahit hindi ho totoo.
Also trying to make a comeback in the legislative branch are former senators and 2022 running mates Ping Lacson and Tito Soto. Together with re-electionist Senator Lito Lapid, Lacson and Soto want to bring back their experience back to the upper chamber.
I pledge to continue not availing of the pork barrel allocations in any shape or form. I will continue being a vanguard, if you will, of the annual national budget to the best of my ability.
Former Senate President Soto, meantime, wants to bring proper decorum back at the upper house.
I think procedures are very important. That will give a better environment, not only for the senators or the congressmen, but also the resource persons.
There are returnees as well to the party list circle, like the re-electionist United Senior Citizen Party List and a teacher party list. Online personality Diwata or Deo Balbuena in real life is the 4th nominee of Vendors Party List.
Batas na gusto kong gawin tapos lalong-lalo na po yung sa karanasan ko din na medyo yung permit medyo napakahirap, yun kasi ang naisip ko. Gusto ko mag-implement ako ng batas sa pag-aralan na para mas mapadali.
Unlike Diwata, there are lesser-known personalities gunning for national seats. Among them is Betsaida Lopez, now on her 3rd attempt to make it on the official ballot.
Kapag hindi ako pinatakbong senador ng COMELEC, lahat ng mga taong involved na ako ay i-disqualified sa pagiging mahirap, ay isinusumpa ko ang mga taong yon.
Eric Negapatan, another senatoriable, is promising to return the Marcoses' wealth to Filipinos.
Sapagkat kausap ko ang lahat ng mga hari ng mga bansa, by this 2025, wala na pong bibili ng bigas. Wala na magbabayad ng tubig. Wala na magbabayad ng kuryente.
The Commission on Elections has said it will accept all COCs from anyone so long as proper forms and documents are submitted. COMELEC has 5 days from receipt of COC to determine whether or not a candidate can be considered nuisance.
titignan po namin, meron pa rin naman po dalawa natira para ma-determine kung ikaw ay bona fide nakakandidato. Tignan namin ano ba actuations mo nung nag-file ka ng COC. Naiintindihan mo ba yung tinatakbo mong posisyon? Yung bang mga ipinangako mo ay nasasaklaw ng posisyon na gusto mong takbuhan?
For News 5, Mon Gualvez, we are One News.
So welcome back, Shawn, to the chaos that is Philippine elections.
I like specifically timed my return just in time for the filing of COCs because it's the circus that we cannot miss.
Well, yesterday and today we saw a slew of, I would say, content creators, vloggers, file their certificates of candidacies, but also the ordinary Filipinos. And ito nga, no, pinag-uusapan nga namin kagabi kung ano ba yung magka-qualify as a nuisance candidate. Number 1, if you make a mockery of Philippine elections. Number 2, if you cause confusion. And number 3, if you don't have a bona fide o bona fide intention of running. Na yun yung parang pinagdedebatihan. Kailangan may partido ka, kailangan meron kang resources. Pero ang popularity, may jurisprudence na. You don't need to be popular to run.
Yun nga. But I think empirical evidence will show that you have to be popular to win. Diba? Not saying na you have to be popular on a national scale. But even kung sa barangay mo sikat ka, ganyan, it will really help. And demokrasya to eh. So mahirap mong paghiwalayin na, you know, the freedom of people to want to run and to want to represent, right? So it's kind of a slippery slope. Like how do you how does the Supreme Court rule on these things, diba? Na parang demokrasya tayo eh.
Totoo
so,
yan.
natin mabigyan ng chance.
Pero ang popularity, usually, it benefits the candidate when they are coming from a strong political family or they have
showbiz.
Relatives o showbiz, pwede rin. But hindi pa ganoon ka-tested ang content creators because in the past, for example, Mocha Uson lost the elections and she's said to be running again this year. Meron din mga vloggers katulad ni Ross Martan na sinasabi niya, hindi daw siya bobo, kaya daw niya aralin ng lawmaking. Si Diwata, nakita natin kanina, representing the vendors, he is the 4th nominee. Sinasabi niya, yung mga walang pwesto na vendor gusto niyang ipagtanggol, bubusin ng kooperatiba, at magbibigay siya ng unli pares, unli rice with free soft drinks pa sa kamera.
Okay, so I mean, si Ross Martan, I think pinag-uusapan siya today, no? All over social media, I've been seeing her name. May mga comments pa na, ano ba yan, pinabili lang daw ba ng suka kasi nakachinela siya sa filing. But there's nothing that excludes her from
That's
running,
correct, that's
right?
correct. But whether they can turn views into votes, that's another thing.
Well, we'll have to see, no? Because social media has been playing such a big role in the past how many elections? 4 or 5 elections already. So we'll see kung ano yung pambato ng mga content creators natin.
Speaking of social media, I think our next politician who filed the certificate of candidacy kind of learned the game of social media the past years, and it could be, you know, the best way for him to get a foot into Philippine politics and into Congress. Well, that's how veteran human rights lawyer Shell Jokno sees his being chosen as first nominee of re-electionist Akbayan. Jokno joined Akbayan on September 17, just a week before COMELEC declared the group as one of the winners in the 2022 party list race. Akbayan assumed the seat vacated by Anwaray after its registration was nullified by COMELEC. For Attorney Jokno, representing his new party is both a principled and a practical decision. On our sister program Storycon, he also weighed in on why so-called progressive candidates do not fare well in surveys despite their issue-based platforms. For him, it is a matter of name recall and media exposure.
Kahit na hindi campaign period, nasa kanila yung resources, marami sa kanila ay nasa pwesto na. Samantalang kami mga progresibong kandidato, alam niyo naman, taghirap tayo pagdating sa mga resources na ganyan. At para lang makapasok sa new cycle is also a challenge for us.
Meanwhile, former Senator Ping Lacson is raring to go back to the upper chamber, and he promises to pick up where he left off, scrutinize the national budget. He is also revisiting measures that will cleanse the Philippine National Police.
Yung organization, in place naman dyan yung tinatawag na Internal Affairs Service. Dangan nga lang, medyo walang ipin. Walang masyadong ipin yun. Kasi parang ang talaga nasusunod pa rin si PNP. Dapat bigyan ng independence. Kasi nasa PNP law na yun eh. Of course, dapat palakasin din yung PLEB, yung Fifth Law Enforcement Board. Kasi parang naging dormant yun eh. Napakagandang rin nun. Kaya lang, babantayan din, dapat may mga safeguard.
And Chel Diokno, I was so shocked. I was not here in the Philippines when I saw online na he decided instead to run as a first nominee of Akbayan party list. I think it's a wise decision for him and definitely easier to get in his foot in the door.
Oo. Kasi ito recently nga na nabigyan nga ng seat ang Akbayan dahil sa disqualification case dun sa Anwaray. So ito yung sinasabi nila Ronald kanina sa story ko na matagal-tagal na ang narinig ko 2 dekada na before they last held a position in Congress. Correct me if I'm wrong. So
hindi naman 2 dekada. Kasi naalala ko pa si Walden Bello nung bago pa akong
mali siguro yung pagkakarinig ko kanina.
Pero di naman 2 dekada, but you're right. Starting around the time of President Duterte, a lot of these National Democratic, yung mga socialist group, they call it, ano ba tawag sa kanila? Mga anak pawis, akbayan. Nawala sila lahat, bayan muna. And then makikita natin, they fielded a full slate. Diba? Kompleto, may announcement party pa doon sa entabladong malaki. It's been a while since we saw that from the NatDems. So exciting for me na makabalik sila after nila mawala for nakakailang since the time of President Duterte.
Sabi ni Shell kanina kung dati nila mabagit-bagit yung human rights. Ngayon medyo kaya na.
Saka medyo uso ngayon
conversation. But he also said that he has learned how to do messaging correctly by listening to experts, communication experts, and that's where we bring in the power of social media, how he has been present on TikTok with his videos.
And we have guested him here and he has explained to us, diba, yung whole rationale niya of learning TikToks, and he is the head of the Free Legal Assistance Group. Kaya gumagawa siya ng mga legal na payo sa kanyang TikTok account na actually napakadaling pakinggan nga naman.
Pero tinanong din sa kanya kanina sa story ko paano nila ipoposisyon yung sarili nila as opposition because the Marcoses and Dutertes are fighting. So ang sabi nila, they look to Risa Contiveros as a good example of a balancing act in criticizing both parties
and staying
true to their principles as the traditional opposition.
And still displaying how they are willing to work with the majority kahit na they are quote-unquote the opposition, or they view themselves also as fiscalizers or the opposition. Now, speaking of Risa Ontiveros, maganda na binanggit mo siya dahil naalala ko before, she only won on her 3rd Senate try.
Oo nga. Tapos naalala ko rin dati, lagi siyang nababash at tinotroll. Kumbaga yung social media game niya, hindi pa mataas. Ngayon, kasi meron na rin siyang team na mabilis mag-release ng kanyang mga videos from the hearings.
Yes.
Tapos yung pagkaka-edit, kung mapapansin mo, parang Gen Z
pang
attention span.
talaga, pang TikTok kung baga.
Exactly.
Okay, well, more local politicians also filed their COCs or certificates of candidacy for the 2025 midterm elections. Mobile journalist Julie Baiza gives us a rundown of day 2.
Supporters of incumbent Caloocan City Mayor Alang Malapitan were on a celebratory mood when he arrived at Plaza Rizal. He was joined by his family, running mate Vice Mayor Ana Karina T. Limsico, and other members of their slate. Together, they filed their certificates of candidacy at the COMELEC satellite office in the mall earlier today. The Malapitans have long dominated local politics in Caloocan, one of the vote-rich cities in Metro Manila. But for the 2025 midterm elections, Malapitan will be running against former Senator Antonio Trillanes IV, who will file his COC tomorrow for the mayoralty.
Siyempre, lagi naman pag may kalabang ka, laging may challenge yun, di ba? Pero okay lang, at least magkakaroon din ng mga choices ang mga taga-Caloocan.
Sir, baka meron kayo sa kanya, message sa kanya?
Wala.
In Quezon City, most of those who filed their COCs today were councilor aspirants. Among them is former TV reporter Dolan Castro, who will run in the 1st District.
Nabigo man tayo nung una pero hindi tayo huminto. Nabigo tayo nung una pero hindi tayo sumuko. Nabigo tayo pero higit sa lahat po, hindi tayo nagtago. Kaya po wala pa tayo sa pwesto pero tuloy po ang ating serbisyo. Tayo naniniwala na yung ating advocacy at mga programa na sinulong, lalo na sa mga senior citizen, mga PWD, mga solo parents, mga kabataan ay talaga namang nagtuloy-tuloy tayo at hindi tayo tumigil.
Kiko Del Mundo and attorney Jesus Miguel Suntay also filed their COC for councilor in the 4th District. Over to Pasig City, 6 party mates of Mayor Vico Soto filed their COC for councilor in the 1st District. There is no information yet as to when Soto will file his bid for re-election. In Taguig City, no one has yet filed a COC for mayor. In a Facebook post, former Mayor Lino Cayetano confirmed that he will not run again for mayor to support the re-election bid of incumbent Mayor Lani Cayetano. He will instead run for congressman in the 1st District of Taguig Pateros.
Working closely together.
We're going to be pausing for a quick break, but right after that, digital service platforms will now have to pay value-added tax or VAT. What is affected, and will this tax trickle down to consumers? The details when the big story returns. Stay with us.
Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News. President Bongbong Marcos has signed the law imposing tax on digital service platforms. Will this lead to an increase in prices of subscriptions and products for consumers? Maricel Halili with the report.
Now watching taxes on digital services. These include Netflix, Disney Plus, and other streaming platforms. President Bongbong Marcos signed a law imposing value-added taxes on digital services.
We are not imposing new taxes. We are simply strengthening the authority and streamlining the process of the BIR to collect value-added tax on digital services.
Under this piece of legislation, a 12% VAT will be imposed on all digital services platform based abroad but has a market in the Philippines. The law also covers online shopping platforms.
If your presence in the Philippines market is as real as your profits, then your tax responsibility should also be equally tangible. But make no mistake, we are not imposing new taxes. We are simply strengthening the authority and streamlining the process of the BIR to collect value-added tax on digital services.
Under this law, the government is seen to earn 105 billion pesos in additional revenue in the next 5 years. But here's the caveat. The platforms may pass on to consumers the added tax. So there's a chance that prices of online products, services, and subscriptions may increase. That's why Val, who loves to shop online, plans to cut down on her expenses.
Babawasan lang po siguro ako nung mga ino-order kasi siguro din po hindi po ako makaka-order nung mas gusto kong mga ibang brand na damit.
According to the Bureau of Internal Revenue, it cannot prevent digital service platforms from passing on the cost to consumers, but they expect the impact to be minimal.
If they will increase their prices by so much, they will also lose their customers at the same time. So I'm sure they will not do that. It's not a wise business decision.
Online educational services, including courses, webinars, and other digital educational offerings, are exempted from value-added tax. Other digital services sold on a subscription basis to educational institutions recognized by the Department of Education, the Commission on Higher Education, and state universities and colleges are also exempted. The government has 90 days to draft the implementing rules and regulations of the law. For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
And now we speak with tax expert Mon Abrea regarding the digital taxes. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Sir Mon, are you there?
Good evening. Yes, good evening.
Okay, bagong tax na naman. Pero hindi, sabi ni
bago
President
eh.
Marcos,
Hindi naman daw siya bago. Kinorek lang daw nila ang injustice na dahil yung mga local.
Hihigpitan ang collection. Ano? Do we assume that the 12% will be passed on to consumers? Do you think that it's but fair, and you think it will do well for the industry?
Well, alam mo, Shawn, inevitably it will really be passed on because it's a consumption tax. It's an indirect tax. By very nature, dinadagdag talaga yan doon sa presyo. It will really be, the burden will really be passed on to the consumers. Unfortunately, they wanted to collect taxes from these foreign digital service providers, pero ang kukolektahan nila local consumers pa rin kasi nga ipapasa din sa atin yung 12% tax.
Okay, Mon, ano yung initial thoughts mo dito, no? Because, I mean, VAT is VAT, di ba? Ginagawa ba to sa ibang bansa to these internet or digital service providers? Pangalanan na natin, no? Amazon, Netflix, Shopee, Lazada. Pilipinas lang ba ang gumagawa nito as of now? Just to set the context for everyone.
Sure. Actually, misnomer yung pangalan ng batas na digital service tax. Diba yung initially tawag sa kanya digital service tax? Kasi sa Europe, sinimulan talaga, they already have a digital service tax. But the digital service tax is like their income tax or VAT and income tax para din sa mga tech companies. Kaya digital service tax ang tawag. Sa atin kasi, it's that. It's not income tax. It's value-added tax. Ibig sabihin, it's a pass-on. Ipapasa sa consumer. Hindi mo nakukolektahan yung kumpanya na kumikita. Ang kinukolektahan mo yung kumukonsumo. Yung nagpa-patronize, yung nagpa-subscribe. So like for instance, most of us are Netflix subscribers. The only thing that we will notice the moment it takes effect is i-inform tayo na may 12% VAT na idadagdag dun sa subscription fee. So, contrary dun sa sinasabi nilang minimal, minimal sa kanila yung 12%, maybe. Pero, ba't naman nila babawasan or ba't naman nila i-burden yung sarili nila dun sa VAT? Talaga naman ipapasa lang nila yun. So, they will just add, let's say, 500 pesos plus 12%. So, magiging 560.
Okay, so Mon, you wouldn't call this progressive taxation. Am I correct? And the desired effect of government for the playing field to be leveled off will be just for the tech companies who will be in that space, who will be charging subscription fees.
Well, actually, it levels the playing field if you consider the perspective of the local providers. Kasi yung local providers, nagbabayad na talaga yung 12% tax. So, in a way, it levels the playing field. But the fact that it will be simply passed on to local consumers or subscribers, in a way, pwede mo sabihin progressive kasi may capacity to pay ka dapat. Kaya lang, the general public kasi, Shawn, hindi naman mayaman. Hindi naman porket may Netflix subscriber ka, mayaman ka.
So definitely...
So, I don't...
Go ahead, Mon.
Yeah. So that in itself, parang feeling ko, it's really just adding burden to our consumers. Sabi nga nung immediate reaction, paano na tayo makapag-shopping sa taas ng presyo? Which is actually the natural effect.
Okay. So, Mon, do you think more of a misnomer ito that they're trying to, kumbaga, PR it, no? As something else than what it actually is, which is another excise tax?
Well, sana hindi. Kasi sana makolekta talaga sila. At sana i-fast track din natin yung pagkukolekt talaga ng income tax sa mga multinationals. Kasi imagine, how can we really guarantee that they will be able to collect this 12% VAT? Ano pa kay Netflix? Kung wala talagang IT infrastructure or mechanism to really monitor, ilang million yung subscription talaga na nakukolekta ni Netflix from the Philippines. Diba? So parang nagdagdag lang tayo ng bayad tapos hindi pa rin nila nakolekta. Tapos yung sasabihin na iba-block, diba? O hindi tayo din nagdusa pag pinlock si Netflix. Parang, I mean, it's really parang double-edged sword there. We want the government to collect our revenues, pero sana may infrastructure sila to actually collect it, monitor and collect it. Otherwise, nadagdagan na naman yung gastos natin tapos hindi naman nila nakolekta.
Oh. Alam mo, Gretch, mo, naalala ko lang dito yung Pogos, nung ginawa silang legal, no, at i-regulate daw, di ba? Kukunan daw sila ng tax kasi sayang naman daw na tumatagas lahat ng pera. This money keeps flowing around and nobody is collecting it. And then finally, when they did start collecting, they didn't actually collect that much or as much as we thought. Now, let me continue, no. The DOF said na ang ine-expect nila just for next year, at 50% compliance, 7.25 billion pesos daw mako-collect. And in 5 years, 102.12 billion pesos. Mon, is that possible in real terms? What do you think?
Maybe it's even smaller if you will look at the e-commerce ecosystem na sobrang laki talaga ng mga online transactions. Pero I always come back din sa pag nag-project sila, dapat we hold them accountable. After 1 year, let's see whether they really collect it. Kasi ang dami na natin dinadagdag na tax, hindi naman nila nakokolekta. Sabi mo nga si Pogo pa. Nung in-implement siya, nawala si Pogo. Imbis na nakakolekta. So parang, are we really ano ba talaga yung objective mo? Gusto mo ba talaga makakolekta o gusto mo na manakot? Gusto mo lang maging busy?
To be
Diba?
fair,
Kasi even,
though,
for instance, for BIR, ang dami na nilang kinukolekta. Kaya niyo pa ba?
oo nga. Pero to be fair, ang projection ni DOF, 50% compliance lang for next year. Is that a fair 50%? Are we even hitting that in terms of collections?
I think it's a conservative estimate. That's fair. Pero sana, diba, talagang they have the mechanism to make sure na lahat ng mga foreign providers, kasi identified na naman natin the bigger ones. I don't think we really need 100%. But at least we focus on the big ones, diba?
Okay, Mon, how difficult would it be to chase after these non-resident digital service providers? Napaka-broad ng scope na yun, no? Kasi tinitignan ko yung nakalinya na line item. It includes cloud services, platforms providing downloadable digital content. So kasama ba dyan ng, let's say, Dropbox, Google Drive, di ba may subscription din yun? Paano yung mga...
Lahat ng may subscription kasama, di ba?
Paano yung mga news outlets? New York Times, Washington Post, etc. etc.
Kahit
Kasama
yung
rin
mga
yun.
Rappler, ganyan, di ba? Na meron ding...
Supposedly kasama lahat kasi ang in-exempt lang is yung educational Diba? So anything na dumaan sa online platform, supposedly covered nitong 12%. Alam mo, dito papasok si OECD, yung international cooperation, kasi we need to know where they are registered. Remember, they are not registered in the Philippines. Yun actually yung pinaka-apprehension ko dito. Yung registered na sa Philippines, hindi natin makolekte. Yung hindi pa registered. So kailangan talaga may mechanism tayo. Otherwise, ito sa buwan na naman to. But again, we wish them well. This is a welcome development. I just hope that we hold them accountable. Kasi baka mamaya, dagdagan yung burden natin ng 12% across all online platforms kasi hindi naman nila makolekta. Or hindi nila mapag-register. Kasi hindi nila alam na nasa Cayman Islands pala, na nasa Ireland pala, na nasa Netherlands pala. They should have a mechanism
Mon, you said kanina, no, focus dun sa mga malalaki. Well, the law actually says that yung mga kumpanya lang na may gross sales or gross receipts over 3 billion are required to register for VAT. Is that what you would consider big ones? Or is that too small in today's terms?
Sean, ang 3 million, sa atin lang malaki. Sa online, ang 3 million, kahit first hour, ito nga may nag-online selling.
Billion naman,
100
Mon.
million daw siya.
Billion with a B. 3 billion gross receipts. Maliit yun?
Which story? Sorry, yung sa...
Ang sabi kasi ng...
Ang VAT threshold is 3 million. Not billion.
Oh.
So, ibig sabihin, everyone is covered.
Well, Mon, won't this discourage foreign firms from investing or setting up shop in the Philippines? Because I do remember that time when we were waiting for Disney Plus to arrive here in the Philippines. It took quite some time. Ilang taon din yun.
Yeah.
And compared to the rest of the world, we are a small market. Won't this tax, this new tax, or not new tax, the
adjusted,
the collection of these taxes rather, just discourage foreign firms from establishing their presence here in the Philippines?
Well, number one, they are not registered naman here in the Philippines. So medyo hindi pa natin talaga matansya whether imposing 12% VAT will totally discourage them. Because right now, they make billions of revenues, but they are not registered in the Philippines. Kaya nga ako, ang priority sana ng ating Congress is to work with OECD. And I met them in Paris. They're willing to help our government. It's just that, alam mo yon, ang daming politika eh. And tax is very technical. Hindi pwede ito mamulitika. Kaya dapat intindihin mo talaga. We need international cooperation. We need the help of international organizations to make sure na we will have the capacity, the infrastructure to implement this. Ngayon, if you will ask me, tama ba itong move na to? I think it's fair. It's fair. It will really level the playing field. But whether it will be implemented properly and whether it will be collected entirely, it is another question. Then number two, will it really affect investment? Hindi naman sila nag-invest dito in the first place. Diba ang office ng Google dito, marketing office lang. So wala naman talaga silang investment dito. They're not registered. But I think the challenge is for them to be registered. How do we make sure they register in the Philippines?
So how
And
any
the third
ideas
one,
on...
and the third one really is to collect income tax, not just value-added tax. Kasi consumption tax is just collecting from the consumers. Collect income tax. I think that's more important.
What did the OECD have to say about the registration process? Meron ba silang framework or guidelines about how like a developing nation such as us, the Philippines, can actually, engender these big companies to set up maybe a compliance officer here or whatnot?
Correct. Yeah, actually, there are frameworks and there are also already systems in place. It's a matter of really engaging with the OECD. Plus, we signed already the inclusive agreement. Ibig sabihin, we can already benefit from the data sharing. So we can actually get information who are these companies who are in online platforms, where they are registered. But it's a matter of legislating it to make sure we maximize that global rules, yung sinasabi nila na against global taxation. Yun yung mas serious Ito kasing 12% VAT, medyo hindi naman sa minadali. Pero it's really more of a short term rather than a long term. Or medyo low-lying mas madali. Mas madaling ipasa. Pero hindi madaling kolektahin. Madaling ipasa. Pero hindi madaling kolekta.
Anong gusto mong makita sa IRR mo? As we know, the law has just been signed. So we have a couple of months yet before the IRR is released. Anything we should be watching out for?
Honestly, how will the digitalization really make it easy? Kasi imagine mo, for VAT-registered companies, ang burden ng withholding at remitting that VAT is nasa kanila. So if, let's say for instance, ABC company, nag-bill ka sa mga foreign digital service providers, ikaw ang dapat mag-withhold at mag-remit. Paano kung hindi sila registered sa Philippines? Problemahin mo pa. At ikaw i-assess ni BIR. So, magkaroon ng mechanism na ang burden hindi mapupunta sa ating mga domestic corporations or taxpayers and to really make sure na may transparency na makukolekta talaga nila ng tama at hindi na naman witch hunt. Kasi baka mga witch hunting na naman sila kung ano yung nakita nila sa Facebook or online. Dapat talaga merong data gathering and analytics.
And we know, speaking of leveling the playing field, 5% of the money collected from those taxes will go to creative industries. Is that enough? And also, alam natin na ang talagang makakatulong dito ay doon sa brick and mortar stores. Compared to those who sell on Lazada, Shopee, TikTok, medyo doon magle-level ng konti. Dapat bang may limit yon? May limit ba dapat sa ipapasa? Or is 12% fine? Because may withholding tax din na 1%. We also discussed that this year.
Yeah. Again, by nature, the 12% VAT as a consumption tax is an indirect tax. Talagang pass-on yan pinapasa. So it's really not a question of whether it's fair or not because that's the nature of the tax. The fact na 12% VAT yung ipapataw nila, pwede talaga ipasa yung legally. Pero yung 1% withholding tax is not value-added tax. It's an advanced income tax. So it's a separate thing. Uulitin ko, ang issue ko dito sa 12% VAT on foreign direct digital service provider, kinokolekta mo sila ng VAT, pero hindi mo sila kinokolekta ng income tax. Unlike yung local brick and mortar o yung mga online sellers, kinokolekta mo na sila ng VAT, kinokolektahan pa sila ng income tax through the withholding tax na 1%.
Okay.
So in that regard, hindi patas.
So hindi pa rin patas. Kahit na tinry nila gawing i-level yung playing field, what you're saying, Mon, is it's still not level until they also collect income tax from these foreign non-domiciled DSPs.
Pero mahirap din gawin yun.
Even yung 5%.
Honestly, hindi ba mahirap kolektahin yung VAT na hindi sila registered dito? Mahirap din yun.
Yes.
And I guess last question na lang, Mon, since related to taxation, some of our officials are saying na hindi nga fair, no, na magbigay daw ng VAT tax exemption to foreigners, whereas I believe almost all the countries you can get a tax exemption on VAT. Your thoughts?
Sa tourists?
Sorry?
Is this for the tourists? The VAT
yes, for tourists. For tourists.
Yes. Again, honestly, if we really want to be globally competitive and attract tourists, I think it's necessary. But sana na, meron na namang mechanism. Kasi baka mamaya, ano na namang budol-budol mangyari sa airport. Kasi diba, sa Europe, napakadali ng refund Ako, I really enjoy availing of tax refunds, especially sa Paris, sa London. Ang dali Baka naman mamaya, moro-moro mangyari dyan. So, I mean, if we really want to give VAT refunds, ibigay natin. Kasi diba we have VAT refund para dun sa mga may tax incentives, and yet wala sila nakukuha refund. Kasi ayaw i-release ni BIR. So again, okay yan. I think it's a good idea to really attract more foreign tourists. Pero sana, make sure it will really be released. Hindi yung pahihirapan mo pati.
All right. Maraming salamat. Thank you so much for helping us dissect those taxes and put everything into perspective. Thank you again for your time. Tax expert Mon Abrea.
Ay, lipat naman tayo. Speaking of paying more, having to shell out more, the new operator of NAIA will also be charging more for planes that use the airport. And with these new rates, passengers could soon see higher fares. Jared De La Peña with more details.
Apart from higher vehicle parking rates that were implemented at the NAIA starting yesterday, fees of aircraft that use the airport have also increased. This include fees for parking, landing, and takeoff. The DOTR confirmed this increase based on an administrative order issued 2 weeks ago. And according to the airlines, the new rates are quite substantial, which are 60% to 300% higher depending on the size and weight of the aircraft. During today's aviation summit, DOTR Secretary Jaime Bautista admitted that there is a need to raise various airport rates so the San Miguel-led new NAIA Infrastructure Corporation, NAIA's new operator, can recoup their investments on the rehabilitation projects.
The last increase was in year 2000, no? So for the last 24 years, there were no increases in these fees that we charge to the airline, no? And if you will compare the rates that we have before the increase, we are the cheapest in Asia. The reason for this is for us to be able to generate revenue, no? Especially the concessionaire, for them to be able to finance the infrastructure requirements, no, to modernize the airport.
But with the added fees, there is now a concern that this will have an effect on ticket prices. Bautista said this is expected.
If it will increase, it should not be a huge increase, no? Because the airlines, no, can absorb part of it, no. Part of it can be passed on to the passengers, no. So, but this is for the concessionaire to be able to also recover their investments, no. The airlines are already recovering from the pandemic. They are making money, no. So I think they can also share in this airport development modernization program.
Senator Grace Poe, who spoke at the summit, said she supports airport modernization projects, but she also urged Bautista to review the adjustments as these could deter airlines from flying into the Philippines.
A substantial increase in airport charges, which include landing, takeoff, and parking fees, are necessary to fund airport modernization and improve passenger experience. But perhaps this could be reviewed, as the increase in takeoff fees for both international and domestic carriers could possibly affect the airline's viability to operate flights to the Philippines. We may have beautiful beaches, but if it's very expensive to come here compared to other countries, like our other ASEAN neighbors, it might be difficult for us to continue competing.
AirAsia Philippines said higher aviation charges imposed by airport authorities will likely influence ticket pricing. As of yet, the carrier is carefully evaluating the potential impact of the higher fees to its operations. Bautista said the DOTR continues to coordinate with the NNIC to find ways to curb the impact of the recent rate hikes, though the agency also appeals to the public to give the new concessionaire a chance to implement its plans to rehabilitate NAIA, which has long been delayed. For News 5, Gerard De La Peña, We Are One News.
Of course, it's all over social media yung comments dun sa higher overnight parking fees, pati dun sa mga airline fees na pinataw. Well, sa akin lang kasi sana may pagbabago muna bago
yun nga yung sinasabi ng mga netizen. Diba? Pakita nyo muna sa amin kung anong nagbago bago kayo maningil ng mas mataas.
And of course, lumabas na rin yung mga 30 billion kasi na binayad nila sa gobyerno, nung kumpanya to get it. Are they trying to recoup? That's just the sentiment online. But I guess it's all stemming from that nga na, teka lang, ano bang nagbago? Because I was just there this morning sa NAIA 3.
Kamusta naman?
Ganun pa rin.
Well, they are working on the congestion at the airport. So
They've done some logistics.
Pag tinaas mo yung presyo, kukunti yung mga sasakyan. And may mga suggestions na lumalabas na mag-grab na lang daw o yung parang ube na bus.
Yes. Yung point-to-point
Yung
bus.
point-to-point. Para kasi mura na lang siya relatively kung everyday ka magbabayad ng parking.
Ang mahal ng parking kasi.
1,200
for
overnight.
But a lot of people are commenting on that, no? Kasi kahit di sila masyadong apektado, right now we don't know kung mapapass on to consumers yung higher fees na charge sa airlines. But for sure, yung overnight parking fees, mararamdaman talaga yun ng mga consumers. And a lot of them are saying, no, when I take kunyari, you're from Manila and you take a 3-night business trip to Cebu, you have to pay so much. It's almost the same as one-way flight ticket mo.
That's
or
correct.
Possible two-way flight ticket.
And if you're coming from the province and you have no choice but to leave your car at the airport, yun ang medyo masakit.
Masakit.
Well, we do hope to see more developments to justify those costs, just like...
We want to be proven wrong. And we want to stop complaining. Okay, we'll take another quick break for now. When we return, Taal volcano erupts this afternoon. We'll be giving an update when the big story returns. Keep it here on One News.
Welcome back. You're still watching the big story here on One News. All eyes on two towns caught right smack in the middle of controversy. Bamban in Tarlac and Porac in Pampanga have been under the spotlight these few months. Criminals have used these areas as hotbeds for illegal gambling. And now that they are under national scrutiny, the question is who will run, and that holds more weight. Brian Basa reports.
The ombudsman made it clear Alice Guo committed grave misconduct that kicked her out of office as mayor of Bamban, Tarlac. But without a final decision by the Supreme Court, she can run again. Solicitor General Minardo Guevara said in an interview with Storycon that none of the cases against Guo, including the ombudsman's decision dismissing her from service, has attained finality. The same is true for the other cases filed against her, including the quo warranto and the petition for the cancellation of Guo's birth certificate. And even if these cases have been decided against Guo, appeals often delay the final verdict. Now the question is, will she give it to Guo this midterm election? Her lawyer says she will decide this week. In Bamban so far, there's only one mayoralty bet, Joey Salting, who heads the largest barangay in that town. This is his second attempt at the seat after losing to Guo in 2022 by a mere 468 votes. Salting will be running under the Nationalist People's Coalition. His running mate is suspended Councilor number 2, Jaji Sales, and the tandem has nothing but kind words for Guo while keeping distance from the Pogo fiasco.
Napakasipag niya at napaka-supportive. Sa problema niya, wala kaming alam doon. Kung nga po, 10 years na akong barangay captain dito pero hindi kami nakapasok sa Pogo. Lahat po kaming nanunungkulan dito, wala po kaming alam sa Pogo.
Maganda po ang ginawa ni Mayor Alice. No doubt po yan, maganda po. Pero yung pong sa mga kontrobersiya, let the court decide na lang po. Mas gusto ko nasa kay Tito Joey. At kay Tito Joey Salting, nasa kanya ang kauunlad ng bayan ng Bamban.
Some 30 kilometers away from Bamban is the town of Porac in Pampanga. What was once a quiet town rose to fame for housing the country's biggest pogo hub. But still, some residents are not feeling any financial gain from it. That's why they still depend on handouts from local officials. And this mindset they intend to carry come decision day.
Yung gusto ko pong iboto sa Mayo, yung malalapitan. Yung hindi ka mahihirapan pag linapitan mo. Yung makakatulong sa mahihirap. Yun lang pong gusto kong, yung pag may nanalo, yung matutulungan niya yung ibang tao. Hindi yung pag nanalo na, hindi ka na kilala.
Ang pinakaayaw ko po sa mga binoboto natin, yung lalapitan mo, emergency, tuturo ka sa iba, pumunta ka sa ganito, sasabihin niyang ganun sa'yo. Tapos, pupuntahan mo yung tinuro niya, ililipat ka na naman sa iba. O halimbawa po, emergency, namamatay na yung nilalapit mo sa kanila para tulungan. mamamatay na bago ka matulungan, di ba?
There are two mayoralty candidates in Porac at the moment. There's lawyer and former Vice Mayor Charlie Santos and former Councilor Mike Tapang, who was seen with businessman and reputed political kingmaker Bong Pineda. Incumbent Mayor Jaime Capil, who is under scrutiny for alleged links to Pogo, will be making his re-election bid on Thursday. In Porac, Pampanga, for News 5, I'm Brian Basa, and we are One News.
In other news, former presidential spokesman Harry Roque is still hopeful that the Supreme Court will keep him away from the investigation of the House Quad Committee's investigation. Yesterday, the High Tribunal junked Roque's petition for a writ of amparo that will lift the lower chamber's arrest and detention order against him. The lawyer filed separate petitions for certiorari and prohibition meant to stop the House from compelling him to attend hearings and submit documents. The Quad Committee is probing Roque's alleged involvement in Pogo operations.
Bilang isang abogado, bilang isang officer of the court, ginagalang ko po yung pagbabasura ng Korte Suprema sa writ of amparo. Bagamat maasa pa rin po kami na titignan pa rin ng hukuman yung merito doon naman sa aming petisyon ng certiorari at prohibition. We're keeping our fingers crossed. Bagamat nauna ko na pong sinabi na bilang officer of the court, talagang gagalangin ko po ang desisyon ng korte.
Embassy officials are having a hard time repatriating Filipino workers in Lebanon. That's because the Lebanese immigration is closed and cannot issue travel documents to Filipinos without passports. In total, 1,544 Filipino migrant workers have enlisted for repatriation. The Department of Migrant Workers, or DMW, is now working to get a chartered plane for the OFW stuck in Lebanon. The DMW said the OFW should not worry if their employers will not permit them to go.
Paalaman sila o hindi, ang importante po makuha po natin sila. No? Kami na po ang bahala makipag-usap sa employer.
Pupuntahan po ninyo sila doon sa kanilang mga bahay?
Sa abot po ng aming makakaya.
Israel has bombed Lebanon with a series of airstrikes which killed its target, the leader of the militant group Hezbollah. Iran has retaliated with 400 missile attacks against Israel. But Israel has an Iron Dome, a defense system that intercepts missiles in the air.
Now, before we go, and in case you missed it, Taal volcano erupted this afternoon, spewing an eruption plume some 2 kilometers into the sky. The phreatomagmatic eruption lasted 11 minutes and was triggered by a minor explosive event due to the interaction of magma and water from the crater. FIVOC says that Taal remains at alert level 1 as it continues to monitor the volcano. It also warns against going to Taal Volcano Island while the alert level is up, as well as the permanent danger zone around the volcano.
Ang kailangan lang po talaga ay iwasan ng Taal Volcano Island. Paulit-ulit na po tayo dyan, na pwede po magkaroon tayo ng mga minor explosive eruptions dyan sa Taal Volcano Island. Hindi lamang po ito ganun, na meron din po itong mga hazards na dulot, katulad po ng mga minor base surge. Nakita po natin sa video na meron pong maliit na base surge na tumakbo po dyan sa loob po ng main crater. No? At meron din po yung mga kasamang volcanic gas na ini-expel.
We're getting a science lesson here. Parang sinasabi daw na may interaction nga yung water and a small branch of shallow magma dahil merong sulfur dioxide doon sa main crater, and it has been degassing sulfur dioxide for 3 years now.
Exactly. Actually, what we were talking about earlier was, remember nung nagkaroon ng COVID, lahat ng tao may mask na N95 because nag-ashfall ng bongga ang Taal Volcano before the pandemic hit us. And it has been on alert level 1 since 2018 or 2019.
Parang 2022 yung nakita ko.
As in, matagal na siyang alert level.
Matagal
na. And it's always been a phreatic kind of eruption, not a magmatic.
That's
yung
correct.
magmatic, yung orange, and may fire, and that's the, I guess, yun yung medyo mas extreme one.
They say it is unlikely to progress into major magmatic eruption, but nevertheless, if you're heading towards that area, better to wear a face mask.
Yeah. Just bring one, just in case.
To protect yourselves from the gas.
On that note, and that advice of bringing again an N95 mask if you're going near the volcano, that's it for the big story tonight. We are One News, all sides, all the time.
Welcome back.
Thank you
to the show.
Good to be back.
Well, till we see you again tomorrow, thank you so much for tuning in and have a good night.